At 2 a.m., the Cognosite Labs office was cloaked in silence, lit only by dim security lights flickering down the hallways. The soft clatter of typing echoed faintly from the 7th floor, where the technical team was still running simulations on their new AI model. Down on the 1st floor, near the revolving doors that led to the underground parking garage, Alina Reyes sat behind the security glass of the night guard's booth. An old news broadcast played on loop over the radio, the anchor's voice fading into background noise she no longer registered. At that moment, her eyes were fixed on camera 21, displaying the executive floor, where no one was supposed to be after 10 p.m. But a few minutes ago, the system had flagged an unauthorized access. No alarm. No clearance confirmation. Just a single blinking red dot on the floor map. And now, the camera feed from that zone had suddenly gone temporarily offline. No one expects the night guard to care about anything more than a cup of coffee or counting the hours until shifts end. But Alina was no ordinary guard. 3 years ago, she was a lead software engineer at Centrix AI, one of the top firms in unstructured data recognition. She had spoken on stage at a tech conference in Toronto, had been nominated for a Women in Data Ethics Award, and was once listed among AI's rising future leaders. But then, she reported an internal incident. A model the company was preparing to commercialize had been trained on unauthorized personal data, including private medical records and user search histories. They told her to stay silent. When she refused, everything collapsed. She was accused of unauthorized system access, pushed out of the company, her professional profile flagged as untrustworthy. Interview requests vanished. Emails went unanswered, and after over a year of unemployment, she took the only job that would hire her night guard at Cognosite Labs, a company she once dreamed of joining as an engineer. Now just a place where she watched security cams, buzzed doors open, and logged vehicle entries. The elevator dinged at floor 21. The hallway lights were in energy-saving mode, casting a faint amber hue from the meeting room at the far end. Alina heard nothing, no footsteps, no voices, but the print room door was ajar. She stepped forward, her rubber-soled uniform shoes barely making a sound on the tile floor. Inside, the printer was still warm. A stack of freshly printed papers sat unattended on the output tray, resting partly on the vent. She glanced around, then slid the stack out. No title, no cover page, just a faint header at the top. NSX, R, red line, do not archive. Alina didn't yet know what she was holding, but the first line made her freeze. Modification layer. Integration shell injects surveillance logic at data level 2. User, unaware, irreversible once deployed. She wasn't an engineer anymore, but those words still meant something dangerous. A code injection into an AI system that would collect data without user awareness undetectable and impossible to remove once installed. What did it mean? It meant the system would function like any normal AI, delivering good suggestions, serving businesses as expected, but behind it, a hidden layer of code would silently siphon data, behaviors, voice input, patterns, all for a purpose the user would never know. Her hands trembled slightly. This wasn't something that should be lying in a printer at 2 a.m. This was a red flag evidence, or at least, a warning. She glanced at the camera in the corner of the room, still fuzzy. Of course it was. If someone was covering their tracks, they'd know how to wipe the security feeds too. Alina took a small step back, clutching the stack of papers, as if it might vanish the moment she let go. Her mind spun with possibilities. Maybe it was just an old document. Maybe it was an unapproved test file. But why print it in the middle of the night? And more importantly, why try to hide it? She quietly slid the stack inside her security jacket, tucking it between 2 foam layers pressed against her chest, then turned back into the hallway. Her heart pounded not out of fear of being caught, but because of a familiar, unsettling instinct, the exact same feeling she had the first time she uncovered a data breach at her former company. That sixth sense one, only those who've written code long enough truly understand, was screaming now. The elevator descended slowly to the ground floor. She glanced quickly at the cameras and noted the timestamp just as the feed from the 21st floor came back online. Clear, uncorrupted, showing nothing unusual. Impressive, she thought. Someone's wiping their tracks the second after the act. This wasn't a mistake. It was a campaign. For the rest of her shift, she couldn't sit still. Behind the security desk, she opened her personal laptop, scanned the printed document using a handheld scanner, and saved the files to an encrypted USB drive, careful not to leave any traces on company systems. Then, using an open-source tool she'd once used to audit AI security layers, she began to dig into the document code strings, API calls, internal deployment instructions. Everything pointed toward a project under the codename NSXR, described as Predictive Data Governance Layer, Property of Novera Systems, Pending Merger Deployment. The name sent a chill down her spine. Novera, the same company Cognizite was days away from merging with in a deal worth over $200 million, just 2 weeks away from signing. The media had dubbed it the marriage of future-proof hardware and behavioral AI. Cognizite, known for its high-speed data processing capabilities, and Novera, renowned for deep learning models applied in government, enterprise, and finance. Tech journalism hailed it as the biggest AI consolidation of the decade. But why was Novera's internal data sitting in Cognizite's secure printer in the middle of the night? And who sent it? Alina didn't know, but her instincts told her she couldn't stop here. By 6 a.m., her shift ended. She left the building just as sunlight filtered through the street trees. On the bus ride home, she kept her hand tight around the USB in her coat pocket. The early commuters around her sipped coffee, scrolled their phones, and chatted softly. She, on the other hand, sat alone in a gray zone between right and wrong, between action and consequence. She didn't want another tragedy like last time, but if this really was a conspiracy, if it was a covert power play the company's board knew nothing about, then silence would be betrayal. Back in her small apartment, a 400-square-foot studio with chipped walls and a noisy heater, she brewed a strong cup of black tea, opened her laptop, and began connecting the dots. The document was printed at 1:47 a.m. by an unidentified user. No user ID was logged in the print history, likely routed through an internal system override. The print room only unlocked after 10 p.m. via admin-level access. She immediately cross-referenced new employees granted elevated permissions in the past month. Only one stood out: Claire Huang, newly appointed Chief Legal Officer. Recruited from Washington, her credentials were impeccable: former attorney for 2 major corporations, known for her icy precision. Alina hesitated. Then she made a decision. She wrote an email not from her company account, but from her private one with a single, simple line. I believe internal documents are being mishandled. I'm the night guard. I'm not sending this anonymously, not because I'm brave, but because I need someone to actually read it. She didn't sign her name, but she attached a photo of a key excerpt from last night's document. That was it. If Claire was who she seemed, she'd know what to do. But if Claire was part of this, then Alina might be going up against it alone. 3 days passed without a single reply. Alina had nearly convinced herself that the email had fallen into a void, or worse, had been forwarded to HR as a breach of protocol. But on the morning of the 4th day, just as she stepped into the security office to begin her shift, a gray parcel sat neatly on her desk. No return address, only a single handwritten line. Seeing the right person isn't a skill, it's courage. She opened it. Inside was a photocopied file and a USB drive labeled Mirror Protocol, Novera, Confidential Audit. Her heart pounded. This wasn't a routine response. Someone had seen her email, had confirmed she wasn't lying, and more importantly, had chosen her. Not to hand over power, but to test loyalty. For years, society had branded her as a radical whistleblower. Now, it seemed that very label had become her ticket back into the game. But this time, there would be no spotlight, no ethical awards. This time, she would be the shadow, the whisper behind the curtain, the one who saw everything while no one saw her. That night, when the entire office fell silent, she plugged the USB into a backup terminal, an old station once used for reviewing security logs. The files weren't malicious, but they were encrypted with a unique key that could only be unlocked by combining two things: an internal Cognosite login and a temporary employee code from Novera. A clever way to ensure only someone with access to both systems could read it. And surprisingly, she had both. The Cognosite login? She was an official employee. The Novera code? It had been buried in the header of the printout from that night. NSXer 0854 Claver F7. She typed it in. The file opened slowly, deliberately, as if the entire world were holding its breath. What appeared was like opening your eyes in the middle of a storm. A dense interface. A 74-page internal audit. Line-by-line analysis of AI modules, unauthorized data retrieval logs, and most damning of all, a diagram showing how user data from Cognosite would be merged into Novera's central system as dynamic training payloads, meaning Novera's new AI would learn from Cognosite's user base without ever asking their permission. This was a blatant violation of AI ethics, a federal-level offense, the kind of thing that could bring down both companies. Alina sat still for a long time after finishing the report. Her hands were ice cold, but her mind burned. She didn't know who had sent it. It could have been Claire, or another insider. But whoever it was left no trace, no request for help, no suggested next steps. They had simply shown her the truth. And now, she was the one who had to decide what to do with it. Around 3 a.m., she picked up her phone, logged into the company's internal network, and searched for tech staff still active after hours. One name popped up repeatedly in the logs, despite not being listed as part of the merger task force. Malik Ose Night Shift. IT engineer, formerly part of the data security team at a company Alina recognized, Heliopoint. She remembered his name from a conference where she had once given a keynote. They'd never spoken. He was currently logged in on the 3rd floor. Without hesitation, she printed a copy of the first page of the Mirror Protocol report, sealed it in a plain folder, and headed straight to the tech wing. Malik was eating instant noodles, headphones on, foot-tapping to music, when she knocked on the glass. He jumped slightly, pulled off his headphones, and turned his eyes, registering mild surprise at the sight of a security uniform. Alina gave a small wave, handed him the envelope, and said quietly, "I know this isn't normal, but I think you're the only one who'll recognize what this is." Malik looked at the folder, then up at her silent, evaluating, and then he gave the faintest nod. That nod changed everything. Malik didn't speak for the first 7 minutes. He just read his eyes, tracing each line like he was decoding a dead language. His back was slightly hunched, shoulders rising and falling with each restrained breath, occasionally tightening, as if the words on the page were driving tiny needles into whatever trust he still had left for the place they both worked. When he finished, he didn't look at Alina immediately. Instead, his gaze drifted toward the corner of the room, to an old poster from 2019 that still hung crookedly on the wall. Empathy-driven innovation. The bold slogan he once believed in. He spoke softly, evenly. If this is real, we're not just talking about a data abuse case. We're talking about a machine learning framework capable of harvesting behavioral biosignals, breathing patterns, vocal cadence, even gaze frequency, embedded deep into every integrated product. Then he looked directly at Alina for the first time. Navra isn't just acquiring Cognizite. They're seizing control of the behavioral patterns of millions of people through devices those people don't even realize are watching them. Alina clenched her jacket strap. Everything she'd feared now had a name. Malik understood. And from here on, there was no turning back. "We need to confirm the contract was swapped," Alina said. "If I'm right, there are two versions. One presented to the board, and one printed for the CEO to sign. This one, with faintly embedded clauses in Appendix C, where nobody looks closely." Malik nodded. He stood and pulled out an old air-gapped laptop from a drawer. "I remember seeing a print command from a Ghost Root account. I saved the logs. I had a feeling, but I didn't say anything. Now I have a reason." He began extracting print logs from the internal network. Commands scrolled across the black screen like falling stars, timestamps, access points, user IDs, and then a single entry that didn't match. Printed at 3:14 a.m. on Tuesday. From a machine not registered to the system. "There it is," Malik said. Voice shaky. File name, merger, package, signed, V6, RC. No board-reviewed prefix like the real one, and it matches the timestamp from the 21st floor printer. Alina exhaled sharply. It felt like confirming a murder she'd long suspected. Except this time, the victim wasn't a person. It was the reputation and data of millions. "Now," she said carefully, "the question is, who altered the contract? Who gave it to the CEO? And how much does the CEO know?" The question hung in the air between them. Because if Jordan Vance, hailed by Wired as the human face of modern AI, was complicit in this deception, then this wasn't just corporate misconduct. It was a betrayal of public trust on an almost irredeemable scale. Malik proposed a bold move. "I can check the temporary draft cache on the print management system. If we can pull the checksum, the unique fingerprint of the original file, and compare it with the signed version, if they don't match, we have evidence of a deliberate swap." Alina nodded slowly. "I'll create a 20-minute distraction. What do you need?" "Just make sure the elevator doesn't log access to the tech floor." "I can handle that." They split up. Alina faked a minor security breach, triggering a false camera feed error that forced the main IT team to reset storage partitions, a task that would take at least 30 minutes. Meanwhile, Malik slipped into the maintenance level, digging into the forgotten print cache stored on local machines. No one bothered wiping after late-night jobs because who prints documents at 3 a.m.? Except janitors and overnight engineers. 20 minutes later, they met again in an empty storage room. Malik handed her a USB drive, his face taut. "The checksums don't match. The signed version has an added clause exactly in Appendix C. Like you said." It reads, "Upon acquisition, Navra Systems reserves the right to integrate proprietary behavioral insights from all existing Cognizite services into unified training systems without requiring additional consent." Alina swallowed. "So that means..." "It means that once the deal is signed, they legally gain the right to use every single user's data to train their global AI without asking anyone. And the contract hides this in a place no one checks, unless they know what to look for." In that moment, they didn't need to say anything else. Alina knew. They couldn't go to HR, couldn't trust the executive board, couldn't send anonymous emails. Anyone could be a node in a system waiting to hit deploy. They needed another plan, a way to stop the contract from being finalized, without destroying themselves in the process. And above all, they had to make the truth public. Claire Huang entered the conference room like a cold gust slipping through a half-open door. She was tall. Her footsteps made no sound, but every movement carried weight as if each gesture had been calculated in advance, neither excessive nor lacking. Alina caught sight of her through the hallway's reflective glass on the 14th floor, where Malik had just finished hacking into the archive access system. They had waited 3 hours for Claire to show the only person with authorized access to both versions of the contract, the one approved by the board and the one the CEO was about to sign. Without her, their plan would be career suicide. "What do you think you're doing?" That was the first thing Claire said after Alina had left the folder on her desk the previous morning, accompanied by a handwritten note. "I'm the one you didn't see on the security feed." They met for the first time in the print room fitting, since that's where it had all begun. Claire didn't bring a lawyer or security. She wasn't flustered. Her face was composed, as though receiving classified documents from a night guard was part of her daily routine. But her eyes, those eyes were so cold that Malik had to excuse himself to the hallway, leaving Alina to face her alone. "I checked the contract," Claire said, her voice low and sharp as a blade. "You were right. There's an added clause, and if signed, it would violate 3 federal data privacy laws." Alina said nothing. She waited. Claire paced a circle around the printer before stopping directly in front of her. "I don't know who you are, but I know this much. Someone who risks everything in the middle of the night to stop a contract like this usually has a reason deeper than justice." Alina clenched her sleeve. "I used to be a software engineer," she said. "I once warned my former company about unauthorized data use. They labeled me unstable, kicked me out, erased my name from every system. I lost everything. My reputation, my family, my friends, my dream. I took this job not because I wanted to be a security guard, but because no one else would hire me." Claire didn't react immediately. She simply nodded just once. "So this is revenge?" "No," Alina replied. "This is survival, not mine. But for everyone out there who doesn't know the AI they use every day is quietly mining every detail about them without consent." Silence stretched between them like the snap of a broken violin string. Then Claire exhaled. "Listen," she said. "The signing is Friday, 9 a.m., during a global internal livestream. I can't stop the CEO unless I have hard proof the contract was tampered with and someone willing to say so in front of the board." "You want me to come forward?" Alina asked, stunned. "Not just come forward," Claire replied. "I want you to walk in just as the CEO is about to sign and hand me the original appendix. Force a pause live on camera." Alina nearly laughed. "I'm a night guard. They'll throw me out before I make it 5 steps." "No," Claire said, and for the first time, a crack appeared in her icy composure. "I'll give you a temporary access pass executive level. You'll have 30 seconds to get that document into my hands. The rest, I'll handle." Friday arrived like a countdown clock. Malik worked his last overnight shift on Thursday and quietly called in sick to avoid attention. Claire sent out an official email stating a special technical support team member would be present during the signing. No one asked questions. At a company like Cognizite, everyone pretends they know everything. Alina stood in front of the mirror in the locker room, wearing the black blazer borrowed from Claire, hair tied back. She didn't recognize the woman staring back. No longer a janitor in bleach-scented uniform. No longer a disgraced engineer. She was someone holding the truth. Someone no one expected to speak. 9:01 a.m. The signing ceremony began. The entire 23rd floor auditorium glowed under studio lights. Livestream cameras captured every angle of CEO Jordan Vance, the man with the perfect smile and immaculate hair. He approached the table, pen in hand, ready to sign. Claire rose to speak. And just then Alina entered the auditorium. Every head turned. No one knew who she was. No one understood how a stranger had made it past security. Alina walked to the center aisle. Just as the CEO bent to sign, she spoke, not shouting, but loud and clear. "That version isn't the one the board approved." Time froze. The CEO looked up, brows furrowed. Claire stepped forward, hand outstretched. Alina gave her the folder. Claire pulled 2 sheets Appendix C and the checksum from the midnight print job and turned to the mic. "I recommend halting the signing. I have evidence this contract was modified without board review." Gasps erupted. The camera kept rolling. A staffer rushed to whisper in the CEO's ear. He looked around, jaw tight, trying to suppress his fury. "We will pause the process," he said at last. "Full review to follow." He walked out without looking back. That same afternoon, an emergency board meeting was called. The CEO resigned. The board announced a full investigation. Novara's partnership was suspended, and the name Alina Reyes, once nearly erased from the tech world, became known as the first whistleblower to stop one of the biggest AI deals in history live on air. A week later, she received an email from Claire. "We'd like to invite you to join Cognizant's AI Ethics Oversight Committee. Not because you were right, but because you were braver than anyone I've ever met." Alina didn't reply right away. She simply opened her window and looked out at the autumn sky over Austin. No more red printer lights. No more blurred cameras. Just real daylight shining on the place where, finally, someone invisible had made the world stop and listen. On the final afternoon of the week, Alina returned to the office no longer in her security uniform. She walked past the front desk, the same one where, just 3 months ago, she'd stood in line to receive her night shift badge. Now, people stopped to look at her. Some whispered. Some nodded, as if acknowledging what they once chose to ignore. But no one smiled. No one applauded. It wasn't necessary. True reputation doesn't come with noise, it comes with quiet respect. She headed straight to the 10th floor, where the new AI Ethics Division had just been established. The sign was still temporary, printed on paper. Ethical Systems Oversight. Temp Unit 1. Malik was already there, typing away. One side of his headphones tilted off, same as always. He saw her, offered a faint smile. "Welcome back to the scene," he said. She nodded without a word. They didn't need many words anymore. Trust had been built with action, not resumes. On her desk sat a brand new computer. Beside it, a handwritten note in black ink. "I used to believe the law alone could keep the world on track. You reminded me. Ethics begins with courage. Claire." Alina read it, then leaned back in her chair. Part of her still couldn't believe she was back in the industry. Not in the way many dream of no press features, no trophies, no interviews, but in a way no one ever imagined. Now she had a team, a role, and a reason to keep going. She turned to Malik and asked, "Do you think we can stop the system from restructuring and harvesting data another way?" Malik shrugged. "If they're smart enough, they'll try again just differently. So we stay smarter, every day." That line lingered in her mind all afternoon. They couldn't stop the world from getting more complex, but they could hold a light to reveal where the lines are, what choices remain, and where the path back lies, when people go too far. As she left the office that evening, the golden sunlight spilled through the glass, casting long shadows down the hallway, the same hallway she once patrolled each night, checking cameras, locking doors, protecting others so they could sleep soundly. Now, that very hallway was the starting point of something new, not just for a company, but maybe, just maybe, for an entire industry. She walked slowly, didn't look back, because she knew the light isn't always at the end of the tunnel. Sometimes, it's the moment someone chooses to walk toward it, even if they're alone. If this story made you think, share it. Maybe you too have noticed small signs. Strange patterns. Quiet wrongs in a world that often demands silence. Don't brush them off. You might be the only one who sees, and the only one who can speak. Want more stories like this raw, urgent human where ordinary people do extraordinary things? Hit follow. There's more I haven't told yet. And more people like Alina, still waiting for someone to listen.